Good day, Kavibal, and welcome to our Speakers Demo Reel webinar series. For the demo teaching today, the topic will be on all about reading the elements of a story. Before we begin, take note of the following reminders. We will be posting the Zoom link in the comment section before our demo teaching. And the first 5 participants to join the Zoom meeting will be allowed to have close interaction with the speaker during the session and have an open forum after the demo teaching. The first 5 participants will serve as the students for the speaker's demo reel and will get a copy of the speaker's presentation at the end of the webinar. For those who will be chosen, make sure that you participate actively and make sure that your microphones are turned off until asked to turn on. Good day again, Kavibal, and welcome to our Speakers Demo Reel webinar series. For the discussion today, the topic will be on all about reading the elements of a story. Before we begin, take note of the following reminders. For those who'd like to join our Zoom meeting for this afternoon, the link is already posted in our comment section. Also, make sure you are registered to the webinar to have your e-certificate of participation. Visit certificate.vibalgroup.com to generate your proof of attendance. Place your questions in the comment box allotted during the session and they will be addressed by our speaker later on. Share the video using hashtag LearnAs1PH is our official hashtag to all our Vibal webinars. Experience learning ka-Vibal! And now, to proceed with our webinar this afternoon, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker today. Dr. Marie Margot Ann Palencia is a licensed professional teacher, a SPED teacher and advocate for 20 years. She finished psychology degree with distinction from the Philippine Normal University. She obtained her postgraduate course in Master in Arts major in Special Education from the De La Salle University, Manila. She obtained her second postgraduate course in Masters in Education major in School Administration from RTSI MI. She also completed her doctorate degree in education from the same university. She is currently completing her PhD in SPED degree from St. Joseph's College, Quezon City. Currently, she is the school principal of a progressive education preschool, Kids Coco in Ortigas, the executive director of Academic Training and Learning Center in Quezon City. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Dr. Marie Margot Ann Palencia.
Good afternoon, mga ka-Vibal. Thank you for the introduction and welcome again to another learning session, all of course brought to you by Vibal. For all the teachers there, hello everyone, and today I would like to greet all the reading teachers and the English teachers. We are celebrating the reading month, and I know that there are challenges really for us, for the children to read, because we really have a lot of, I would say, competition, most especially with technology. No, it's so hard for the children to read now. So what we're gonna be discussing this afternoon is a topic that is actually for everybody. You just adjust it accordingly to what level are you handling. And there are also some activities here that you might you can adopt or you can used in your class, especially that now we are in this pandemic learning mode. So we're just waiting for just some students to come in, but once again, you are invited to join our Zoom link, which is posted so that I could have an interactive class today. So I'll be starting. So happy reading month, and I hope that we are all doing good in reading. Okay. So I'll be sharing my screen and here. All right. So for today's topic, for the demo reel for this afternoon, it's all about reading, and this are the elements of the story. Actually, this is one of the topics that I like in reading, because it tells us how important that our students should be learning the different parts. You know, I believe that there are a lot of students who are, you know, a bit lazy or not encouraged to read because they don't really understand what is the story, what's in it for them when reading the story. But I for one, because when I was younger, I was introduced properly to the different elements and how important the different parts and the elements of the story are. So every time I read something, I would look for these elements, and it would really make me look for something, or I have something to look forward to. And I know that is also a challenge for all of us. So by the way, I would just like to say that the PowerPoint that I'm gonna use is actually an adopted PowerPoint from SlideShare, which in this pandemic learning mode, we are allowed to do this. We can, that's why there's SlideShare. There are other platforms that they share their work so that it could be used by teachers like us. So today, my PowerPoint is adopted and from Mrs. Rhymes' presentation in SlideShare. So I believe that this will be given also to the teachers who are inside. So let's start our lesson for today. This is about the elements of a story. Okay, so what are the different elements of a story? First, what is a story? A story is it is a narrative of something. So let us go back and remember what is a story about. This is a narrative of something that has a setting, has a character, has characters, has plot and has conflicts. Okay, so there are different parts of a story or different elements of a story, but this four is the basic element of a story. And in our class, for us to be able to understand the different parts of the story that we are going to learn, because as the school year, as we go with the school year, we will always read a lot of stories, and every story there should always be a setting, a character, a plot, and a conflict. So if there's no setting, I believe it's not a complete story. If there are no characters, how can we have a story? And if there's no plot, then there's no story. It's just what happened at a certain time. But of course, when we say plot, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end, and of course, the conflict. Of course, in a story, there's always a problem or a struggle between the people or the characters inside. So the first thing that we're going to study is setting. So setting is the time and the place a story takes place. That's, if you will remember, my dear students, when we read, starting from our I would say fairy tale stories, and I started with those fairy tale and the children's books, right? It's always, even with the um Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Snow White, all of this, there's always a setting. It's always like, once upon a time in a long gone castle. If you would remember that, almost all of the story has a time and a place. And for example, even in the news, when they tell a story about something that has happened, there's always this setting. Where did the news happen? Or for example, there is a fire or there's an accident. Where did this happen? What time did it happen? And who are the people involved in the news? And then what happened in the plot, and so on and so forth. So for you to be able to tell a story, or for example, for us, my dear students, if we want to tell a good story, you should say the setting, the characters, the plot, and the conflict. So the person who are you telling to about the story will understand what is the story all about. Okay, so let's continue starting. So don't forget, for today's topic, our goal, our objective is to learn about these four basic elements of the story. Characters are the people. It could be people, it could be animals or creatures in a story. Later on, we will try to recall some of our the favorite characters that we like. Okay, and then plot is the series of events that happen or make up a story. So from the beginning, going up, and then there's climax, and then going down. So we will be studying that, and of course, conflict. What are the problems? So this is a very exciting one. So I hope that you will really be cooperative and interactive. Okay, let's talk about setting. Okay, the setting describes where and when a story takes place. That's why I told you a while ago. Normally, if we see a book, there's always a setting. It could be in a farm, it could be in a castle, it could be in a faraway land, but there is always a place and a story. So if you are going to be asked if what is the setting, then you can tell about the time of the day. Like here, the details can be the time of the day, the time of the year, time in history, the scenery, the weather, the location, so on and so forth. Okay, so it helps build background and create images in the mind. I know that there are some of you who likes to write stories. When I was younger, I would love to write a book. I would like to write a story of my own. And these are the things that I will remember, that there should be a setting wherein when is this happening, and then what is the weather, or what kind of situation, where is it located. So this will give us a background, like what you see here. There's a clock, there's thunderstorm, it's like in the meadow. So it helps set the tone or mood of the story. Like for example, there are people who like to read settings in the farm. There are people who like to read settings that are in Europe. So with this, people can decide whether they want to read this story or not, because it depends on the setting, it depends on the time of the day. For example, if you are reading, you are reading horror stories, mostly the time of the day that is happening is always in the evening, because that is where it is more scarier, or we are, it's the scariest time of the day, or within the hours, right? So it's the setting. Okay, that's the first element that we're going to learn today. And details, again, can be described. Again, can you read it? Yes. Time of the day? Yes. Time of the year? Yes. Time in history, scenery, weather, and location. Yes, that's correct. Okay. Now, there are also things that we consider. If you have to listen to me carefully, children, my dear students, because everything that I'm discussing is going to be in your project for this quarter. Because our project for this quarter is that you're gonna write your own story. It's, don't be scared. This is just simple story, but of course you have to cover the different parts of the story. Like, you should have a setting, you should have characters, you should have a plot, and you should have a conflict. Okay, now going back in the settings, and a good setting you can also use the five senses. But, why are we sometimes so into the story? For example, even with not if you're not reading, if you are watching a movie, it's also like a story, right? There's a story plot, and then when you see that, in the setting it's very cold, you also feel like you are cold, right? So there is this good visualization of the setting if we are using the five senses. So what are this? Can you read it? Yes, sight. Yes, smell. Yes, taste, feel, and sound. So if we can stimulate the sight, the smell, the taste, and the feel and sound of the reader, then the readers would feel the story. So when you write it, for example, if you want it to be like, if you want it to be like scary, then you have to be like, it should be in the night time, or it should be in the nice. Then if you tell it like that, then the the students or the readers of your story will be able to visualize how nice it is to be in that palace. Okay. A good author includes description of using of the setting using the five senses. Okay, how are we gonna do this? Okay, for example, take a look. Which is better? Okay, so forget about what I have said here before. But what if this is your setting? It's a castle within beside the water, and it feels like cold and it's high. And so, which is better if we are going to tell a story? You can just write it like this: the castle was behind the water. That's it. Now, if you read that and there's no picture, for example, you say the castle was beside the water. Can you picture out something that is like this? Anybody in my students, will you be able to picture out something like this? If, for example, there's no picture, anybody in my class who wants to give me an answer? Okay. Okay. Of course not, right? You will not be able to picture out. So maybe you will just picture a castle. It could be beside the beach, or you will never picture out, or you will never feel like this. But If it's like this, if we are going to write it in this way, the waves crashed loudly against the shoreline, the fog lifted lightly, and the medieval castle came into view. It was a beautiful sight. The fog brushed my face, and I could smell the smoke from the fire in the distance and taste the sea salt on my lips. So, which one can actually entice your senses? In the second paragraph, instead of just writing the castle was beside the water, the waves crash loudly against. So my question is, were you able to relate? Like, can you think of like, what if you don't have a picture and you were reading like the waves crash loudly against the shoreline, the fog lifted lightly, and the medieval castle came into view? Yes, yes, correct. You will feel that it's really like a big castle and it's high, and the body of water beside it is really big because it's crashing against the shoreline. And it's like you will also, since you have been into a beach or into a water which sea salt or salt water, then you will also feel that you could also taste, the taste of like being beside the sea salt water, right? So this is how we write something uh, in the setting, okay, using our senses, because people can relate and on how we are going um to present it to them. They can relate, it's beside the beach, oh, there's fog, it means that it's a high castle, something like this. Okay. Okay, move on. So that is about setting. So let's this time it's your turn. Do I have any students? Can you please turn on your microphone if you are there? Jayan, um, Neverlyn, Rosemary, are you there? Okay. Okay, so on the next slide, there is a picture of the setting. Okay, so for some students who are there, you can actually type your answers. You can just type, maybe we can read it. Okay, in your own words, write a detailed description of the setting in the picture or in your picture. Include many adjectives, and don't forget to include description for each of the 5 sentences like see, hear, feel, smell, and taste. For example, this is your picture. Okay, so how are we going to describe this one? You could say that it's in a faraway castle where there are pine trees. It smells like pine trees, and the water is cold, and you can smell the morning breeze. It's a beautiful day, something like this. So you can stimulate the senses. So I'm gonna leave this to you. This will be an activity that we will do after we have discussed everything. So think of this picture. I will be sending you this picture and your activity. You should be writing a paragraph about this, the setting that you want. Again, when we want to do setting, it's the time of the day, it's the weather, time of the year, it's the scenery, it's the location, and always use the 5 senses. Okay, so this is also an activity that we are going to do. Look for a magazine and find a picture that could be a setting for a story, the story that you are going to write about, then write about it. Okay, so that would be our next activity. Now, let's go to the next one, characters. Okay, so the characters, this is the most famous element of the story. We always remember the characters, right? So the characters, maybe you know this character also. He's Steven Spielberg, right? Everybody knows him. Okay, so for the characters, every story needs a character. Of course, if I will ask you now, who's your favorite character of all time? Every story needs a character, and characters could be people, animals, or creatures. For example, if you are like everybody now is fond of watching K dramas, binge watching different series. Most of the students watch animes, right? Who are your favorite characters? Let me know. For example, we like Mr. Moon. and sing. Or we like Elsa. Some people like Anna. Some people like Frankenstein. Some people, for example, in different movies, for example, they like the character of Josh in Blue's Clues. So every story needs characters. Okay, so again, for your activity, because your project is you're gonna write your own story. So after you have think of your plot, then the next is you have to think of your characters. But of course, you have to think about what story do you want to write about. Okay, so there are two main kinds of characters in the story. Okay, the first one is the protagonist. Okay, the protagonist is the good guy. It like in Filipino, it's the bida. Okay, the protagonist is the good. So let us can you identify the good guys in the picture? Yes, correct. That is Shrek. We have Superman. This is the movie about Cuba, right? And it's Edward Cullen. And I also like this character in the Twilight Saga. We also have here Harry Potter. Of course, everybody knows him. So they are the good guys. So normally in a story, there is a protagonist and there's a the next one is antagonist. So if there's a good guy, for you to be able to get a conflict, there should be an antagonist. So the antagonist is the bad guy or the bad force. Like here we have Ursula, we have the Godfather, we have Darth Vader. Wesley Snipes, I don't know which movie is this, but I don't know, but most probably this is um I don't know, Matrix, or I don't know. uh, that's for us to find out. Okay, sorry. Okay, so can you name some of antagonists that you know? Mm, for example, in the Three Little Pigs, it's the big bad wolf. So there are a lot of antagonists in every story. There's always an antagonist, and even in the stories in the movies, there are also people who are famous for being antagonists. They portray the role of being an antagonist, and they really do it very well. Okay, so how are we going to make characters for our story? So this is about characterization. Is the way in which an author shows the personality of a character. Characterization is a technique writers use to make the characters come into life. For example, this is a very famous character, Tom and Jerry. So here we show what kind of personality or character there's one of the characters in the story. So it could be like true to life or come to life. Okay, so let us go and think about your favorite book, movie, or TV character. Can you describe his or her appearance? What kind of personality does she and he have? What kind of things she does or he and she like, and make a list of character traits for this character. So first, let us think about, for example, my favorite character. For example, my favorite character that I always remember. I like the um, I like Elsa, for example. So I can describe her appearance. For example, I like the movie Les Miserables or the book Les Miserables or there are a lot that we can think about. For example, in Les Miserables, I like Eponine. Then we can tell her appearance, what does she does, so on and so forth. So when we write the story, we have to make this character come into life, make her relatable to us, like she is really real and that people could really relate. That's why, there are times when we say that, oh, that character in the story is really like me. I could really relate to her that much. something like this. Okay, so characterization. Characters are people or animals in the story. A writer can tell you directly about the character. For example, you can just say when you're writing that Freddie was competitive. Or when you are going to write it properly, the writer can tell you indirectly about the character, which is really how it's being done. For example, 2 days before the game, Freddie gathered his teammates and laid out his plan. Then he looked at them and said, "We are going to win this. No excuses." So instead of just saying Freddie was competitive or very competitive, we can characterize him like there's no excuses for him. He wants to win. He has a plan. He gathered his teammates. He laid out his plan, and he's very serious about saying that we are going to win this and no excuses. So I want you to take note of this, children. So this is how we are going to write our characters. Okay, that's the second element. Okay, there's also this thing called direct characterization. So direct characterization tells the reader the personality of the character. Direct characterization is obvious to the reader and spells it right out. For example, the patient boy, the quiet girl were both well behaved and did not disobey their mother. So direct characterization, he said that the boy is patient. That's why he's the patient boy, the quiet girl. We can write it like this way. Or indirect characterization is it shows things that reveal the personality, like speech, thought, effect on action, actions, and looks. Like the boy sat next to his sister as she poked him and teased him. He did not react. Instead of just saying he's a patient boy, he carefully picked up her doll from the floor and placed it on her lap, saying, "Here you go. Why don't you play with your doll?" So instead of just saying directly that he's a patient boy, he can make indirect characterization of what are the gestures and what are the things that a character can do, so that we will have an idea that the boy is patient. Okay. Okay. So indirect characterization, what does the character say or how does the character speak? That is how we write it. So these are the questions that you can use for your writing the characters. Okay. Okay. So here are some character traits that are descriptive, because when we do characterization, we use descriptive adjectives, or we need a lot of adjectives even when we are writing the setting. So can tell us specific qualities of a character, like the honest boy, the light-hearted leader, expert. So I'm be giving you this list that you may use so that you can have some character traits. So it's up to you whether you want to use direct characterization or indirect characterization. But during your presentation, I will be asking you, what did you do here? Did you do direct characterization or indirect characterization? So you should know also, what did you use in your character writing? All right. So factors in analyzing characters, of course, there's physical appearance, personality, background, motivation, relationship, conflict, or struggles. Does the character change? What do they feel and think? How do others feel about them? So these are the things that you may use in writing your character. Okay. For example, in the movie, there's also a thing called character motivation. So it is the driving force behind why the character does what she needs to do, reason for the character's action, or what is the main character want more than anything else? What is the main goal? For every story, there's always a main goal. They want to do something, okay? Or what is the secondary characters want to do anything else more than the main goal? What are the potential conflicts or struggles might exist between the characters? For example, in the story Snow White, in character motivation, why does the queen's heart turn against Snow White? So what is the character motivation for the queen to turn against Snow White? Because why? Because according to the what? What? Because she's the most beautiful, right? She's the prettiest of them all. So the heart doesn't like that, so she turned her heart against Snow White. Okay, and then character motivation. Why do dwarfs allow Snow White to stay with them? Because they found that Snow White has a good heart and they take care, and she loves them and they take care of them. So these are character motivation. Okay, what does the queen disguise herself? Why? As an old peddler woman. Why? Because she wanted to give the apple. Yes, correct. She wanted to give the apple to Snow White so she can eat it. Okay, and then another character motivation. So character motivation pertains to why that certain character is doing something in the story. Okay, so when you write your stories, you have to have some motivation. Why do they run fast? Why do they jump? Why do they hide? Something like this. Okay, why does the queen give Snow White the poison apple? So she could die, and she will be the fairest of and the prettiest of them all. Okay. Okay, so okay. So your turn. Think of a character from a book, a movie, or TV. Who is the character? From what story? What does she want? What does she need? Okay, so we'll have this activity a little later. So think of your favorite character and then from what story, and then we will answer all of these questions a little later. Okay, now let's go to plot. Anyways, you will also have your modules for this one. Okay, plot. So we already have the setting, we already have the characters. Now we are down to the second, to the last element of the story that you are about to write. So plot. So plot are the events that take place in a story. Every story needs a plot. It's not a story if there's no plot. The plot has different parts. Okay, so it's like this. It's exposition. We have the rising action. We have the climax. We have the falling action and the resolution. So those are the 5 parts or of a plot. Okay, so plots component, exposition. So when you are going to write your story already, exposition is the start of the story before the action starts. This is where you say your setting, where the characters in the story, where it is happening, so on and so forth. And then coming to rising action, the series of events and conflicts in the story that lead to the climax. So this is starting like when we watch a movie, right? For like an hour and a half or for 2 hours, there's exposition and then there's rising action. What is already happening? This is the part where you cannot stop reading or you cannot stop watching. And then there goes climax, the turning point, the most intense moment, either mentally or in action. And then going down, falling action, all of the action which follows the climax. Okay, and then resolution, the conclusion, the tying together of all the trends. It's like the conclusion. What was the resolution? What happened? And this is going towards the end. So those are the 5 parts of your component. Anyway, this is just an introduction. We will have another set of lesson for the plot components. But for the meantime, we need to focus first on writing your settings and writing your characters. But of course, before you can do your settings and your characters, you already have like an idea of what kind of story that you are about to write, because that could be your project for this quarter. Okay, the climax is the most exciting part. Okay, so the special technique for a plot, it could be suspense, excitement, or tension. Flashback sometimes when we watch a movie and the suspense is really there. Even in our sleep, we still think about it, and we are so affected by it that sometimes we feel it's also happening to us. Okay, there are also flashbacks, interrupts the normal sequence of events to tell about something that happened in the past. So you can make use of this. Surprise ending, conclusion that reader does not expect, and foreshadowing. So a hint about what will happen next is called foreshadowing. For example, if there's if you read in the book that someone says ah, then you know that someone is about to get eaten, or if you see this picture, right? Okay, so that's foreshadowing, and that's the climax. Maybe what happened? Did she fall down? Did she jump? Did she bump her head, or is she dead, or is she something like this? For example, in the movie Snow White, when she ate the apple, oh, that's the climax. You don't know if she's still going to wake up, right? Okay, so in the next week, this one will need to answer also. Let us recall a story that you have read or watched and fill out the plot diagram for the story. Again, we will have another time for this, but I'm just presenting you the things that we need to accomplish for this quarter's activity in terms of writing your story. Okay. Okay, now let's go to the next part, the conflict. If there's a plot, for the rising to come, from the exposition to the rising action, then there will always be a conflict. So a conflict is the battle between the two forces, because in our story there is the good guy and the bad guy, or there are two forces, the good and the bad. Okay, there are stories that the characters are about nature, so it could be a good force and a bad force. So conflict isn't always bad. Sometimes it helps to create the change. So it depends on how are you going to write your story. Okay, for example, conflict is the struggle between two forces in a story. Without conflict, there is no plot. Yes, because if everything is so smooth, then we don't have a plot. For example, here, there's always a conflict between a dog and a cat. There's For example, in the Bible, there was a conflict between Moses and the Pharaoh. Remember? And then if you remember, there's always a conflict. There was a conflict between the Romans and the Greek, right? And so on and so forth. So these are forces that are contradicting, or there are conflicts in the story. So when you write your story, you should have this conflict going on. Otherwise, there's no plot. Okay, so what are the type of conflicts? It could be character versus character. The most common is character versus character. Of course, there is the protagonist and the antagonist. Okay, sometimes the conflict could be character and nature. For example, we have movies like Character, and then we have problems with earthquake. We have problems with the deep sea rising. We have problem with the core of the earth, something like that. Character versus society, character versus self, and character versus technology. So these are the type of conflicts that we can make use in our story. So it's up to you. You want to choose a character that has a conflict with another character, a character that has a conflict with the nature, a character that has conflict with society, a character that wants to change the society, a character versus self. There are movies like that, and there are books that their problem is actually themselves. And character versus technology, which is very timely, because now we really, like, for example, we have for example, the movie Transformers. There are people who are fighting with robots and technology. So this is something that also can be written. What is good with writing a story is you can write whatever you want, because that is your story. So you just have to choose what is the proper element, or what do you want to write about. So when you write your stories, there are no limitations. It's really up to your interest. So I'm really excited about this. You can write any story that you like, as long as it's acceptable, and as long as, of course, there's no foul words and all. But please make use of these references. This will be in your module when you write your stories. Okay, here are the types of conflict for a deeper look. Character versus character, problem with another character, character versus nature, problem with force of nature. Okay, characters versus society, like you could have a problem with the laws and beliefs of a group or culture. We also have inner conflicts with self. Okay. So, do you have in your mind, do you have a well-known movie that can give us, some conflicts with character versus character? Anybody? Anybody? A movie that the conflict is character versus character. Anybody who has seen any movie lately, or even the telenovelas that we are watching, right? There are characters versus character conflicts. For example, character versus character is Ariel and Ursula, right? How about character versus nature? So the movies, like we have problems, as I've said, the character has problem with nature conflict, like storms, big storms, earthquakes, right? Character versus society. For example, A Few Good Men is a character has problem with the society, the laws that are given, whether you are going to choose the right thing to do or you will just go with what the society is telling you, something like that. Okay, so this is also another homework that we have to do research on something about this. We have already identified some character versus character conflict, which is very easy, character versus nature. So your homework is to choose character versus society, character versus self, and character versus technology. This is your homework. We have to research of movies that has this kind of conflicts. Okay, so let's have a review of the elements of the story. So for today, we have learned about setting, characters, plot, and conflict. So when you write your story by the end of the quarter, your project would be writing a story with complete elements of it: setting, characters, plot, and conflict. Okay, so for next week, in preparation for writing our own story next Friday, everybody of you will present in class the following. Just a draft of your setting, draft of your character, and what plot are you thinking, and what kind of conflict. This is just like presenting your idea so that your classmates can also give you some of their ideas so that all of you can contribute in writing your own stories. Okay, do you have any questions about it? Okay, I guess we don't have. And if that's the case, that's the end of our lesson for today. And please do your homework and your advanced studies. Okay, thank you to my students. Thank you for answering. Okay. So that's the end of the demo reel. Well, for the teachers, I know that you might be saying that this is a long. Actually, it has a long. It is long. Has a long coverage. Yes, but because this could run for weeks. I just presented in a way that these are the things that we can discuss, because as of now we all need to do performance-based assessment. So for us to be able to avoid just giving paper and pen tests, it's best also that in lessons like this we give them project or outcome based assessment, and that is by letting them do their own stuff. And the children now can actually um, bring out your creativity in terms of this one. Okay. So do you have for the participants here? Thank you for the kind words, Miss Rubelinia. I hope that you can use this. And for our participants and viewers in YouTube, I hope that you learn something from this. My suggestion is make output-based assessment for our students. I think the students will appreciate more if they could, because they are really good in research nowadays. So this is one thing that we can share with you. Okay, so thank you for watching, and I'll be turning over the floor again to Miss Vinci. or Miss Sandra?
There we have it. In behalf of Vibal Group Incorporated, I would like to thank our speaker for today for this indeed very interactive and insightful demo teaching session. It is an honor to have you with us today, ma'am. And to all our Kavibal viewers, all thanks to you for your continuous patronage to our daily learning session. Don't forget to register to get your e-certificate of participation. We also encourage you to subscribe and watch on our official Vival Facebook and YouTube channel. Muli maraming salamat at magandang araw sa ating lahat.